A white man? No! Well, what does security do about it?
Nothing.
Typical!
Did we just see everything we just saw?
Yeah, security is not going to do anything about this white man. Nothing at all. Unfortunately for you, the viewers. Welcome in. My goodness. 4th and 1 podcast, not college football podcast. Welcome, everybody. I'm your host, Captain Boring, today, bringing you another riveting episode of the most worstest podcast on the interwebs. It's good to be with you. It's good to have you listen to me over your airways. Thank you, everyone, for engaging with the last episode. Go ahead and let that like and subscribe, share wherever you're seeing this. Go ahead and follow, subscribe. You know, that's how you can support this podcast. The best is to just interact with us, whether that's leaving a comment or dropping a follow or anything like that. Thank you for all 151 subscribers on YouTube. We really do appreciate you all. I am Captain Boring. Like I said, I'm back for another riveting episode, and we are going to start in the Magnolia State with Ole Miss. So in the last week, it came about that Ole Miss graduate, Ole Miss quarterback Trinidad Chambliss, I'm not sure if he's a graduate yet or not, was the lawsuit that the NCAA filed for an injunction to not let him play because the NCAA denied Trinidad's waiver. Trinidad went to court, as he normally does. They went to a circuit court in Louisiana. Obviously, that was granted. It was rumored that the judge went to law school at Ole Miss, so he granted Trinidad an injunction. NCAA filed an appeal. That judge, not the same judge, different judge, threw that out. So Trinidad is cleared for 2026, and I'm not going to stand here on my soapbox and, as I've done the last 4 episodes, and just scream for order and not chaos in a very chaotic sport right now. What I am going to do is I'm going to tell you how this translates to on-field production at Ole Miss in 2026. So 2026, as you know, the end of 2025 was messy. Lane Kiffin left after the regular season, was not allowed to coach in the college football playoff. LSU paid the bonuses each time that Ole Miss won a game to Lane Kiffin. The bonuses that Ole Miss would have given Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin starts the most toxic relationship in all of sports over there in the Bayou at LSU. Leaves behind Pete Golding and what had become one of the more stable programs in college football and definitely in the SEC. Lane Kiffin, surprisingly to everyone, brought law and order to a program that had not seen that level of success in quite some time. The consistency at which he did it has not been matched in quite some time. And I'm going to guess, just going off of the future and who they have currently as their head coach, that it is going to stay that way. So Ole Miss was very transfer portal heavy under Lane Kiffin, and that stayed the same. They inked the number 2 rated transfer portal class in America with multiple additions coming down, including the wide receiver room. Syracuse Orange wide receiver Darrell Gills Jr. headlines a very good receiving core. He's 6'3", he's 190 pounds. I'm getting this all from Sports Illustrated on the Rebels page here, so thank you for that. He's from Texas. In 12 games at Syracuse, 32 catches, 506 yards, and 5 touchdowns. So he's very, very productive. The rest of their college football class, they got a wide receiver from Oregon, from Auburn, Fields. They got an offensive tackle from Miami, Luke Farrelly. Now, here is why I'm kind of down on Ole Miss. There's a certain way to do business for me to believe in your program and have integrity. And I know that the fans are going to be like, well, your program has no integrity. And I would agree with you, but Michigan's never stooped as low as Ole Miss did. So Luke Farrelly signed an NIL deal, enrolled in classes, and was taking classes at Clemson. And then Pete Golding and Jackson Dart and Trinidad Chambliss got on the phone and basically tampered with and brought him, while in class, they called him multiple times and brought him to Ole Miss. A very productive linebacker out of Cal. So he went from Cal to Clemson for a week, enrolled in classes, taking classes, and then he is now at Ole Miss. So he does give them depth on defense. Dabo Swinney did the whole, hey, this is outright tampering. The NCAA, I don't even think investigated at this point, which is wild to me. Wild to me. Because the one way that the NCAA still has power is to hurt the teams. Right now, there's something floating around on the internet that the NCAA is investigating in, like, if you play an ineligible player that is later deemed ineligible, so he's eligible now and then later deemed ineligible, that you get 20% of your rev share cut and your head coach gets a 6-game suspension. That's how you're going to hurt these schools. You can't go after the player because you lose in court all the time. You're going to have to go after the schools and make the schools punished. So let's say they implement a rule that no one's allowed to play over the age of 24, 23, let's just say 23, right? So let's just say Trinidad, I believe he's 24. Let's just say they make that rule and then Ole Miss lets him play. The NCAA could come back at Ole Miss and be like, no, you broke the rules. Trinidad didn't, but you did. You let him you broke the rules. So it is, you get your rev share cut in half, 20%, whatever it is. Oh, by the way, Pete Golding, you're also suspended. That's what the NCAA is going to have to do to get some sort of law and order back in it. But back to Ole Miss. So Luke Farrelly ends up at Ole Miss. It gives them depth at linebacker, but I don't appreciate the way that Pete Golding has gone about doing business. I know this is college football. I know a lot of people do it, but I just don't appreciate that. And I think it makes the program itself look skeevy and slimy. And those are harsh words for me to use, but just from my point of view, my personal opinion, that is what I think of Pete Golding and the Ole Miss program now. Was Lane Kiffin doing this? I don't know. If you know if Lane Kiffin was doing this as well, that would change my opinion on Lane Kiffin. My opinion has been forever changed by Lane Kiffin since he jumped ship to LSU. They got Mekhi Frazier from Michigan State. He did some work last year for Michigan State. They got another offensive tackle. They got Joshua Dye in the transfer portal, another running back. They got Jonte Cook II out of Syracuse. So they got both Syracuse top 2 wide receivers as well. They got some good defensive line player. They got Isaiah Spencer out of Virginia Tech. So they went very heavy on the offense, especially on the perimeter side of the ball. Why that is important is because Trinidad needs help. He's a shorter quarterback, but he is able to make plays. But when he makes plays, he is looking to throw the ball down the field, and that's what they're giving him. They are giving him help. They brought in an offensive coordinator from East Carolina. He is going to try to keep the offensive train going at Ole Miss. Here's the problem. Lane Kiffin is a genius and a very gifted play caller. I know Charlie Weiss Jr. was running that offense, and it was him who was calling the plays, but it was Lane's offense that Charlie Weiss was installing and running with little kind of tidbits that Charlie Weiss would throw in from time to time. Ole Miss has this whistle on the side. I'm sorry, not Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin would have this, he can do this mouth whistle thing, either with his fingers or just with his tongue. It's very impressive. But that's how he would get the quarterbacks, like, it would like pierce through crowd noises, and he would communicate and give in personal signals even after the headset communication stopped for the quarterback, from the offensive coordinator to the quarterback, and kind of like help him out before the ball was snapped. I expect the offense to take a step back despite the influx of wide receiver talent coming in from the transfer portal in the recruiting class, because Lane Kiffin is so gifted. Charlie Weiss is so gifted. I'm not saying this guy from East Carolina is not gifted in play calling. I'm not. His name is John David Baker. He comes over from East Carolina. He served at East Carolina, USC, previously on Lane Kiffin's staff at Ole Miss. So maybe. But without Lane there, I'm just going to assume the offense takes a step back. Trinidad, again, his fault is he's a little short. He's very magical once he gets outside the pocket. But if you can keep him in the pocket, does that change? I'm a big Trinidad Chambliss fan. I'm a big underdog guy. He was a D2 player, came up, took the world by storm. If people remember from last year, it was between Austin Simmons. Austin Simmons got hurt. Trinidad came in, played really, really well. And then Austin Simmons got healthy, and people were like, well, you got to go back to Austin Simmons. And I said, no, you stay with the hot hand. You stay with Trinidad Chambliss. I don't know that Trinidad can carry a program by himself. The over-under win total for Ole Miss is 7.5. I'm just not buying that over. I'm not buying Pete Golding being a defensive-minded coach to come into a program that was run for the better part of the last decade by a heavy offensive-minded guy, and the offensive production to stay the same. And that could be a wrong mindset. I have always been that if you draft, even in the NFL, if you draft a young quarterback and they go out and they hire a defensive-minded head coach, I know that quarterback is just that the team drafts. I just know that they're not going to be productive and pan out. I mean, yeah, Drake May made the Super Bowl, but Josh McDaniels is a very Josh McDaniels is not the rule. He is the exception, not the rule, right? Sam Darnold for Seattle, if you take him, yeah, Mike McDonald, defensive-minded head coach, one of the best defensive play calls in all college football. Also, broke the streak against Ohio State. Go Blue. But he had a great offensive mind in Clint Kubiak, who is now the head coach for the Vegas Raiders. And Sam Darnold is a veteran quarterback, right? So young quarterbacks that still need help developing, which Trinidad is at this point. I know he's a senior, super senior, whatever you want to call him. But in the college game, because he played at D2 first, he does need help developing in the SEC. I'm just not buying Pete Golding taking Ole Miss team to better than 7.5 wins, better than 7 wins. The schedule's tough. They play in Nashville to open the season against Louisville. Jeff Brom is a great offensive-minded coach. And need I remind you, it's not like Ole Miss last year was world beaters on defense either. They had to outscore Georgia. Miami had the ball last. They let them march right down the field to win the game in the semifinal. The defensive-minded head coach. So, Jeff Brom. I know Trinidad's back. I'm going to say Jeff Brom and Louisville get them because that's been a very strong program there. Charlotte, that's a win. You get LSU at home. There's going to be anger. There's going to be animosity. But LSU's roster is probably better at this point in time. Plus, who doesn't know Trinidad Chambliss better than the two offensive coaches over at LSU in Charlie Weis Jr. and Lane Kiffin? They're going to know his kryptonites, his weaknesses, and they're going to tell that Blake Baker, hey, Trinidad struggles with this. Attack that. I'm looking at that a loss. Then they go to Florida. Florida's a tough place to play. I know Florida's been bad, but I'm very bullish on it's not Alex Golesh there, excuse me. John Summerall's there. Vandy's been rewoken. Then they go to Missouri, Austin Simmons. That's a revenge game for Austin Simmons, the quarterback, because that's where he's at. Then they go to Texas. Sark, one of the best play callers in all of college football. Then they get Alex Golesh and Auburn at home. Then they get Kirby and Georgia at home. Then they go to Norman, one of the hottest defensive play callers in all the country. Brent Venables at Oklahoma. They get a break from Wofford. Then they get Mississippi State. And Jeff Lebby kind of has things moving in the right direction there. So gun to my head, I know we played good, bad, or ugly last couple weeks ago, me and Robert. And I think he said good, and I said bad, right? I think with Trinidad back, I think it's still bad. I think it's 7-5, 6-6. I'm taking the under if I'm a betting man. Just real quick, I think Louisville's a toss-up. I will be nice and give them Louisville and Charlotte. I think they lose to LSU, and I think they lose to Florida. Between Florida and Louisville, those two, I think, are toss-ups and could go either way. So right now, let's just be nice and let's put them at 2-2. They go to Vanderbilt. Again, another toss-up at this point. And I don't like teams that have a bunch of toss-up games on their schedule. Diego Pavia is gone. I'd probably give Ole Miss the edge because Pavia and all those seniors are gone for Vandy. So you're looking at 3-2. Missouri's a very well-coached team. I think you're 3-3 at this point. I'm really bullish on Alex Golish. I think you're 3-4. I think you're 3-5 with Georgia. No, at Norman, 3-6. Wofford, 4. Mississippi State. Yeah, you probably beat them. Now again, Auburn's probably a toss-up game. Oklahoma has the talent, but again, their quarterback OC combo has returned, and Brent Venables is the hottest defensive play caller in all of sports. I think we're looking at anywhere between 5 and 7 wins for Ole Miss, even with Trinidad back and all that talent. I'm just not sold on Pete Golding. Now, if they give it to Louisville and they survive LSU, because it's going to be a close game, and then they go to Florida, and Florida's their first loss, okay, I will throw my hands up. I will say, my bad, Ole Miss, my bad. Because now you can go on a little bit of a run, I think, with Vandy and Missouri. Then you got to go to Austin, and that's a tough one. But I'm not seeing 8 wins. I'm not. Not with this schedule. And not with Pete Golding. I know he comes from the Nick Saban tree. I know he's on Ole Miss. And never be the guy that follows the guy, especially in the way that this whole situation worked out. So that's my take on Ole Miss's upcoming season. Comment down below. Drop a like on this question here. What do you guys have Ole Miss? If there's any Ole Miss fans out there and you're listening to this and you have an Ole Miss fan, go ahead and share this and say, what's your take on Ole Miss this season? What do you think it'd be? Comment down below. I need to know. Over under 7.5. They hitting that over? We shall see. All right, so some other things to take care of here on college football. Oh, my goodness. I need to stop doing that. I need to stop listening to college football podcasts on 4th and 1 podcast. Excuse me. Gus Malzahn and Jeff Tedford joined the CFP selection committee. I think it's a great move. I think right now we have too many athletic directors in the room for the CFP selection committee. Gus Malzahn has won a national title with Cam Newton as an offensive coordinator. He went back to another one as the head coach at Auburn. He was at Arkansas State. He was at Auburn for 7 years. He was at UCF for 3 years. He spent last year highlighting the number 1 offense, Florida State. It didn't amount to many wins, but he knows football, right? I think it brings I'm a big proponent of the people closest to the work know how things operate, so we need to listen to them, right? Ex-coaches are the people closest to the work. Arkansas Athletic Director Hunter Yurachek will return as the committee chair. He had some terrible interviews. They need to also do away with that, the interviews. Really, Hunter Yurachek, when Reese Davis interviews him, and they'd be like, well, how do you have them ranked over them? They just need to look at the camera and be like, well, I just think that they're better. Hunter Yurachek tries to explain it, and it just doesn't end well. And then Louisiana athletic director Brian Maggard also joins the group. Again, I'm done with the athletic directors. I just think there can be too much. Again, you're going to say, well, coaches, the people closest to the work, aren't, Gus Malzahn can be biased towards Auburn. Yeah, but I don't know. Someone like Gus Malzahn, right? Like, I'll agree with you. I'll concede that point. But Gus Malzahn, like, he's been around Arkansas State, Florida State, UCF. Like, it's different. Like, you got to have the right personality, right? So go out, get some head ball coaches, get some good personalities in there that won't be biased, right? Or who are so biased, like I am. I look at Michigan through just a tinted spectrum. I am the hardest on Michigan, right? I'm one of the hardest fans on Michigan. My expectations are so high. My wife gets on me year after year for having high expectations, and then they don't meet them. But that's sometimes okay, and sometimes you need that in the room. Jeff Tedford, he was at Cal from 2002 to 2012, and then Fresno State from 17 to 19 and 22 to 23. He's 127 and 79. He was in there when Cal was nationally ranked with Marshawn Lynch and Deshaun Jackson in one of their best years ever there in 2007. He remains the winningest coach of the Golden Bears at 82 and 57. He had a share of the conference title, Pac-12 back then in 2006. They will join former coaches Mark D'Antonio, Mike Riley on the committee. That's awesome. Again, more coaches in the room. It's not unusual for the group to have 4 former coaches in the room. It has had multiple committees dating back to 2015 when Barry Alvarez, Bobby Johnson, Tom Osborne, and Tyrone Willingham were members. Again, I would like to see more than 50% former coaches in the CFP committee. I'm done with the athletic directors. I just think that there's so much bias in there. Also, college football coaches are used to talking to the media and used to answering hard questions. I'm not saying athletic directors aren't, but college football coaches are scrutinized at the podium week after week after week. Athletic directors aren't. They don't do multiple weekly press conferences that I know of. College football coaches do. So why not make one of them the committee chair? So that when they get posed with the tough question, they know a better, more political way to answer things. So returning to in 2026, committee members include Troy, Denon, the athletic director, Nebraska, D'Antonio, former head coach, Mark Harlan, athletic director at Utah, Ivan Meisel, former sports writer he's been a former sports writer. Again, I trust his integrity. Randall McDaniel, a former All-American offensive lineman at Arizona State. Riley, former head coach at Oregon State. Wesley Walls, former All-American tight end from Ole Miss. Carla Williams, athletic director at the University of Virginia. And Hunter Yurachek. Too many athletic directors for my liking. More athletic directors. What do you guys think? All right, let's talk about the NCAA tournament. We're down to the Final Four. Final Four will be Monday, or Saturday will be the Final Four. National championship game will be Monday. Someone needs to get in my comment section and explain to me why it's not Friday, Sunday. I'm sure that the ratings will be just fine, and I'm sure but I just think you would get more viewers on a Sunday night, I feel, than you would, or like a Sunday at 6:30, than you would on a Monday at, I don't even know normally the game's like at 8:45. The game doesn't get done until close to midnight. I don't normally watch the national championship game. Even if Michigan's in it, I probably won't watch it because I'll be asleep in bed by the time it starts, tips off. We need to stop pandering to the West Coast because that's why they put it on so late. I know that for a fact, but we need to stop pandering to the West Coast. Start the game at 6. National championship game at 6. Even if it's Monday, start at 7, fine. If you're going to keep it on Monday, start at 7. That's 4 over there. Oh, well. People will watch it. With how much access you have now with these little things in your pocket, there should be no worry anymore that you won't have viewership. I have HBO Max, Netflix, YouTube TV, Prime Video, Peacock, and Hulu all on my phone right now. I can access basically whatever I want to watch wherever it is on at any given time. So that's just my little rant about that. The Final Four teams, I have watched them all some this year. I've watched more college basketball this year than I have probably the previous 5 years combined, and that is because Michigan is good this year. So I've been a little more in touch. Also, I've decided I follow this guy, Ryan Hammer 9 on Instagram. Shout out. He does amazing work. He just kind of takes you through what you need to know in quick little Instagram videos. So shout out to Ryan. He does an amazing job. The game that everyone thinks that the national champion will come from are Michigan and Arizona in that side of the bracket. In the right side of the bracket. Michigan and Arizona are very similar teams. I've watched them multiple times throughout this tournament. I've obviously watched Michigan all year. The difference between Michigan and Arizona and UConn and Illinois are that in the second half, their defense, and sometimes after TV timeouts on the floor, whatever it is, their defense flips a switch and they become the most elite defense that I have ever seen play college basketball. Michigan just bludgeoned Tennessee in their Elite Eight game, 95 to 62. 32, that would be wild. 95 to 62, and it wasn't even that close. It was 16 to 14 Tennessee. Me and the wife went to Home Depot. I get out of the car. It's 16 to 14 Tennessee. I walk into Home Depot. We walk to the light section. We pick out a light for our bathroom remodel. We walk over the flooring section. While she's looking at flooring, this is, again, maybe 15 minutes in real time. I take out my phone and it is now 35 to 14. Michigan went on a 21 to nothing run. 21 to nothing run. They're one of the more complete teams. They got old guys, they got young guys. They got the defensive player of the year in Ade Mara. He needs to be better at just being big. Sometimes he just stands there and he's just big. He needs to impact shots, block shots, and then be a scorer offensively and be a good rebounder to beat Arizona. Yaxel is a first-round lottery pick, probably. I just don't see how he can fail in the NBA. He's 6'9", he plays defense, and he can shoot the three. I'm not saying he's going to be a superstar and handle and drop 50 in the NBA, but I see him as a role player for 15 years in the NBA, averaging 9 a night, playing great defense, maybe even a defensive player of the year. That's what I see for Yaxel. They have Trey McKinney, who's the best shooter on the team. They have Elliot Cadeau, who he's small, but he has just that little man syndrome. He's got moxie with him, and he will make you pay for it. And then Arizona, again, it was close with Purdue, and they did the exact same thing Michigan did. They just put the clamps down, and it was turnover, easy bucket, three, layup, three. Like, Arizona is, for a lot of people, were a lot of people's national championship pick. A lot of the experts, from what I'm hearing, the winner of Arizona-Michigan is going to go to the championship game. I think it was a little too easy for Michigan against Tennessee. I think that in the tournament style, when you have an easy game and everything comes too easy, I think your next game's harder. However, Michigan scored over 90 points in all the games. They've won every single tournament game by double digits, almost by 20 every single time, at least 20 every single time. They're favored by 1.5. I will take Arizona because Michigan does fall asleep and then will, if the other team's three balls get rolling, Michigan also tries to play their game, and that just doesn't work. I also don't like Ade Mara. I don't trust Ade Mara. I think he falls asleep too often. So I like Arizona to beat Michigan and go to the national championship, even though in my personal bracket, I picked Michigan. That's just who I am. On the other side, you got Illinois and UConn. So Illinois, along the way, they beat number 11. They beat 14 seed Penn. They beat VCU by 21. Then they beat number 2 Houston. That was a big upset by 10. And then they beat Iowa in the Elite Eight. Iowa had upset number 1 Florida and Nebraska along the way. So Illinois finds himself. They have a tremendous freshman guard by the name of Keaton Wagler. He had 25 points when he played Michigan earlier this year. He was a walking bucket. He was 2 for 7 from three-pointer and 8 from 17. He led all scorers with 25 points, as I said, for the Fighting Illini. They are taking on UConn, who played the game of the tournament so far against Duke in the Elite Eight. Down 19 in the second half, rallied all the way back. John Shire doesn't call a timeout. Caden Booter turns the ball over, and Braylon Mullins hits a 35-plus foot three to send UConn to the Final Four in beating Duke 73-72. Again, when you play, it kind of works as Michigan did when Michigan played a just easy. They made it look easy, right? That's what I mean by easy game. When they made it look easy, I always think that it leaves that team appearing a little hungover the next game. The same can be said as when you play a really fantastic, entertaining, close game in which you hit a buzzer beater or just about. He hit the shot with 0.3 seconds left. Did UConn. That your next game, you're a little hungover. Now, you do have a week in between both of these games for Michigan and for UConn. Where you get into trouble, I feel, is when you're playing the every other day, kind of in the first and second weekend, where you play a really tough game and then you come back and you're a little hungover. Listen, UConn, everyone hates Duke because it's Duke and Duke's excellent and they get all the freshmen and I don't know, whiteness maybe. I don't know if race plays a part, but everyone just hates Duke all the time. I understand. They have frat boys playing. They are just an NBA factory for lottery picks, all of that. Who people need to hate is UConn. UConn has won 7 national championships since 1999. They are the gold standard in all of college basketball. UConn, no matter the coach, produces at a very high level. They are in their third Final Four in the last 4 years. Every time they make it past the second round since 2014, they win a national championship. They've made it past the second round. Bobby Hurley is one of the best basketball coaches in all of basketball. He turned down the Lakers a few years ago. I'm so glad he did because it's a very pleasure to watch him. I don't like how hot he gets with officials. He needs to calm down. It's like my wife tells me with my road rage, you don't need to be so angry all the time. So it's the Illini and the Huskies in the other Final Four. I am going to take Illinois just because I feel like they've flown under the radar. They had one upset of Houston along the way. UConn's kind of coming off that again. They're coming off that fantastic game, that thrilling game. I just think everything's setting up for the Illini. So I think it will be Arizona. I think it will be Illinois playing for the national title. And then I would take Arizona because I probably won't record another podcast for this. But I won't be surprised if it's Michigan, UConn. I won't be surprised if it's UConn, Arizona. Any 4 of these teams can win that national championship. I do think the national championship does come from that left side of the bracket. I will be nervous, though, if UConn makes it in, just because, for whatever reason, Bobby Hurley knows how to coach. in the tournament, and he is very good at it. You not Bobby. Bobby Hurley was his dad. Dan Hurley. I keep calling him Bobby Hurley. I apologize. It just dawned on me there. So Dan Hurley, again, great coach. Bobby Hurley was his dad. That's all I got for you guys. So, yeah, we will see you sometime soon. I'm going to try to find the outro music. Well, that's not it. That can be it. Thank you, everyone, for listening to Fortune One Podcast. Wash your hands, you filthy animals. We'll see you next week, probably at this point. I like doing these little episodes. Until next time, God bless you. Peace out. Bye-bye.